Okay, so in this video, we're going to learn how to add integers. If we have the same sign, we're going to add and keep the sign of the two numbers. Okay, so like if we had 3 plus 5, both of those numbers are positive. So we add those two numbers and then just keep the sign. So it's going to stay positive 8. Okay. What if they were both negative numbers? Like negative 2 plus negative 4. Okay, we have the same sign and we have the addition symbol in the middle. So our rule says that we're going to add the two numbers, the 2 and the 4. That gives us 6. And then we're going to keep the sign since they're both negative. It's going to be a negative 6. Okay, which makes sense if you think about it as far as money goes, right? If you owe $2 and then you owe another $4, now you're going to owe $6. So that's negative 6. Okay, so let's try one more. Negative 1 plus negative 6. Notice there's an addition symbol in the middle and we have two negative numbers. So we're going to add the 1 and the 6. That gives us 7. And then we keep the sign. So that gives us a negative 7. What happens when we have a different sign when we're adding integers? Okay, we're going to find, and this is without the signs, just look for the bigger number and look for the smaller number. And then you're going to do the bigger number minus the smaller number. This is not even looking at the signs. And then you're going to keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay, so let's try one. 7 plus negative 2. Notice that there's addition in the middle, so this is for adding integers. Okay, and notice we have a positive 7 and a negative 2. So the bigger number, right, this is not looking at the signs, the bigger number is the 7, right? And the 2, we're not looking at the sign, we're just looking at the number, right? And we're going to subtract these two. 7 minus 2 is 5. And then we're going to keep the sign of the bigger of the two. Which one was bigger, the 7 or the 2? The 7 is a bigger value, right? So, and the 7 happened to be a positive. So that means that this 5 is going to be positive. Okay? You don't have to put the positive symbol, but I'm just putting it in there. Okay, let's try another one. Negative 5 plus 6. Notice there's addition in the middle of it, okay? And I have a negative 5 and a positive 6. So I'm going to take the bigger of the two numbers. What's bigger, 5 or 6? That would be 6. And I'm going to subtract from the smaller number. So 6 minus 5 is 1. And then I'm going to take the sign of the bigger one, right? Well, we just said a 6 is bigger, right? And 6 happens to be positive. So that means that my answer is also going to be positive. Again, I can put the positive symbol in the front or I can just leave it. It's assumed to be positive if I don't put the positive symbol there. What about negative 8 plus 4? Okay, notice I have a negative. I'm adding, and this is a positive 4, right? So when I have different signs, I locate the bigger of the two numbers without the signs. That's the 8. And I'm going to do 8 minus the smaller number. The smaller number was the 4. So 8 minus 4 is 4. And now I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger one. So which one was bigger, the 8 or the 4? It was the 8. And the 8 happens to be a negative. So that means that I'm going to get negative 4 as my answer. Okay, let's say I had 3 plus negative 10. Okay, so again, there's an addition symbol in the middle, but I have different signs. I have a positive 3 and a negative 10. Okay, so I'm going to take the bigger of the two numbers. This is ignoring the signs. Which one's bigger, the 3 or the 10? A 10 has a higher value. So 10, the bigger number, minus the smaller number. So 10 minus 3 is 7. And then take the sign of the bigger of these two numbers. The 10 was the bigger value, right? So that happened to be negative. So my answer is going to be -7. Okay, so 3 plus -10 is -7, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to give you some for you to try. So try -5 plus -4, -1 plus -3, 3 plus 4, -2 plus -2, 5 plus 6, -10 plus 4, 10 plus -4, -6 plus 8, -8 plus 6. Okay. Pause the video right now and try these problems. Okay, so now you're back. Let's check your work. So I have 2 negatives. I'm adding those 2 negatives. So I'm going to add the 2 numbers and keep the sign. Same thing with the next one. Add the numbers and keep the sign. I have 2 positives. I'm going to add, and it stays positive. Same thing with the next one. Add the 2 numbers. 2 plus 2 is 4, and keep the sign. The next 2 are positive, so I add them and I keep the sign. Still going to be positive. For the next 4, I have different signs, so that means I take the bigger one minus the smaller one. So in this case, the 10 is bigger. I'm going to subtract that from the smaller one. 10 minus 4, that gives me 6, and then keep the sign of the bigger one, so that's a negative. For the next one, it's still, I have different signs, so I'm going to subtract the bigger one minus the smaller one, so that gives me also a 6. But notice that the 10 is a positive now, so the answer is going to be a positive 6. Okay, the next one, I have different signs. I have the addition symbol in the middle, so I am going to do the bigger number, the 8, minus the smaller number. That gives me 2, and then take the sign of the bigger one. The 8 is bigger, and that's positive, so this is a positive 2. The next one, bigger one minus the smaller one because I have different signs, and then keep the sign of the bigger one. This time the 8 is negative, so this is going to be a -2.